So it looks like we're
I'm
on
walking.
page 182. The first paragraph we already read, but that's kind of what we said we would start with as well. We can truly move. We can move toward. Sorry. You want to start? You want me to start?
Yeah.
We can move toward a truly enlightened capitalism if instead of changing as much as the market will bear, we follow a new business ethic based on lowering our prices, specified percentages as a conscious statement of where we want the economy to go. This would be the business equivalent of engaging in the ninth insight force of tithing. Charlene turned to face him, her face luminous. I understand what you're saying. You mean if all businesses reduce prices 10%, then everyone's cost of living, including the raw materials and supplies to the business themselves, would also go down. That's right. Although some prices might go up temporarily as everyone takes into account the true cost of waste disposal and other environmental effects. Overall, though, prices will systematically decline. Doesn't this process already happen at times, I asked, as a result of market forces? Of course, he replied, but it can be accelerated if we do it consciously. Although, as the Night Insight predicts, this process will be greatly enhanced by the discovery of a very inexpensive energy source. It appears as if famine had done that, but the energy had to be made available in the most inexpensive way possible if it is to have its most liberating impact. As he spoke, he seemed to grow more inspired. Turning, he looked straight into my eyes. This is the economic idea that came here wanting to contribute, he said. I've never seen it so clearly. That's why I wanted to have the life experiences I've had. I wanted to be prepared for delivering this message. Do you really think enough people will reduce prices to make a difference? Maya asked. Especially if it takes money out of their own pockets. That seems to fly in the face of human nature. Curtis didn't answer. Instead, he looked at me, along with the others, as if I had the answer. For a moment, I was silent, feeling the energy shift. Curtis is right, I said finally. We'll do it anyway, even though we may give up some personal profit in the short run. None of this makes any sense until we grasp the ninth and 10th insights. If one believes that life is just a matter of personal survival in an essentially meaningless, unfriendly world, then it makes perfect sense to focus all one's wit on living as comfortably as possible and seeing to it that one's children have the same opportunities. But if one grasps the first 9 insights and sees life as a spiritual evolution with spiritual responsibilities, then our view completely changes. And once we begin to understand the 10th, then we see the birth process from a perspective of the afterlife. And we realize that we're all here to bring the earth dimension into alignment with the heavenly sphere. Besides, opportunity and success are very mysterious processes. And if we operate our economic life in the flow of the overall plan, we synchronistically meet all other people who are doing the same thing. And suddenly, prosperity opens up for us.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what you were talking about, even in bearing child and in raising children. Like
Yeah.
once we all start, which is kind of starting to happen, I'm seeing it because more people are speaking up like you, more people are speaking up against the feed your kids every 4 hours, not when they're hungry kind of mentality. It's starting to shift in that arena, which is kind of what he's speaking on in the financial arena.
Well, and then like this is why healing the trauma is so important, because the reason we don't live synchronistically is because we've learned how to not trust ourselves. That's what trauma is. Trauma is the block to our inner voice, to our intuition, to our inner guidance, to our instinct. It's what tells us that what we feel is right, what we feel guided to do is wrong. It's like what we were talking about yesterday when we came up with the title of the book, right? Because this is a co-creation. A journey from trauma back to purpose. It's not that the purpose ever went away. It's not that our intuition ever left us. It's not that our instinct ever left us. Trauma is what told us that our instinct and intuition are wrong. That's all trauma is. And that starts as a child. When as a child, we are crying because we are hungry, and we have mothers who were taught to not feed us until 4 hours.
Right.
Even though we are hungry, our bodies are telling us we're hungry after 2.5. And so for an hour and a half as a child, we're laying there crying, being taught in that moment that our intuition and our instinct and our needs are wrong.
And ignored.
As
Yeah.
an infant, it is nobody's fault. It's not the mom's fault. It's not the doctor who taught them. It's not anybody's fault. And it doesn't matter, even if we knew whose fault it was, that doesn't matter. Right? It's like the other conversation we were having on Sunday. Yes, it's important to be able to have awareness around what caused it, not so we can stop the cause of it, but so we can fix the root problem and know what that root problem is. So we know where to put our energy, and we've been putting our energy on the blame. That doesn't fix it.
Nope.
Putting our energy on who did it, who done it, doesn't fix it. What fixes it is bringing ourselves back to learning how to trust ourselves. That's what the 9 ways of being are. And how do we fucking embody those 9 ways of being? How the fuck do we take this word that's a fucking concept that is infinite in nature, prepared, safety, freedom, liberation, beauty, unity, mystery, fucking sacred, integrated, all of these words that are these ideas, how do we embody them? And it's through the fucking 6 core practices, right? That's how we fucking get in and learn how to listen and trust ourselves. It's not that we don't know what to do. It's not that we have to learn skills or learn things or behaviors. Our life has prepared us for that already. Through, even in living in the trauma, living in a world, a life where we don't listen to ourselves, we have still honed all of those skills. Look at each of our lives. Our life has prepared us. We already have the skills. Now it's the listening. Now it's the trusting.
Yeah.
Our internal guidance is what's going to guide us in how to use those skills. It's going to tell us why we honed those skills. Wasn't for the reason we thought we did.
Life's vision.
Now is the time to listen. And this is the work that we're doing, all of us. Whether it's at a property management company, whether it's driving customers around, whether it's fixing somebody's electricity, or being in ceremony, or at a full moon gathering.
A men's group.
We're doing the same thing no matter what we do.
Right.
And that's just helping people learn how to listen and trust themselves again. Off my pulpit. Go ahead.
We'll do it. Continued. Because individually, that's where intuition and coincidences will take place. We'll remember more about our birth vision, and it will become clear that we have intended to make a certain contribution to the world. And most important, we'll know that if we don't follow this intuition, not only will the magic, coincidences, and the sense of inspiration and aliveness stop, but eventually we have to look at our actions in the afterlife review. We'll have to face our failure. I stopped abruptly, noticing that Charlene and Maya were both standing wide-eyed at the space behind me. Reflexively,
Reflexively.
Reflexively, I turned around. There was a hazy outline of my own soul group. Dozens of individuals faded into the distance, again, as though the walls of the cave weren't there. What are you all looking at? Curtis asked. It's his soul group, Charlene said. I saw these groups when I was at the falls. I've seen a group behind both Maya and Curtis, I said. Maya twisted around and looked at the space behind her. The group there flickered once, then came fully into focus. I didn't see anything, Curtis said. Where are they? Maya continued to stare, obviously seeing all the groups. They're helping us, aren't they? They can give us the vision we're looking for. As soon as she made that comment, all of the groups moved away from us dramatically and became less clear. What happened? Maya asked. It's your expectation, I said. If you look for them, if you look to them for your energy as a replacement for your own inner connection to divine energy, they leave. They won't allow dependence. The same thing happened to me. Charlene gave me a nod of agreement. It happened to me too. They're like family. We're connected to them in thought, but we have to sustain our own connection with the universe or with the divine source beyond them before we can link to them and pick up on what they know, which is really our own higher memory. They hold the memory for us? Maya asked. Yes, Charlene replied, looking directly at me. She started to say something else, then stopped herself, appearing to drift off into thought. Then she said, I'm beginning to understand what I saw in the other dimension. In the afterlife of each of us comes from a particular soul group. These groups each have a particular angle or truth to offer the rest of humanity. She glanced at me. For instance, you come from a group of facilitators. Do you know that? Souls that help evolve our psychological understanding of what life is about. Everyone who belongs to this particular soul group is always trying to find the best and most comprehensive way of describing spiritual reality. You struggle with complex information, and because you're so dense, you keep pushing and exploring until you find a way to express it clearly. I looked at her askance, which made her burst out laughing. It's a gift you have, she said reassuringly. Turning to Maya, she said, and you, Maya, your soul group is orientated toward health and well-being. They think of themselves as solidifiers of the physical dimension, keeping our cells operating optimally and full of energy, tracing and removing emotional blocks before they manifest in disease. Curtis's group is about transforming the use of technology as well as our overall understanding of commerce. Throughout human history, this group has been working to spiritualize our concepts of money and capitalism, to find the ideal
Conceptualization.
conceptualization. She paused, and I could already see an image of light flickering behind her. What about you, Charlene? I asked. What is your group doing? We're journalists, researchers, she replied, working to help people appreciate and learn from each other. What journalism is really all about is looking deeply at the life and beliefs of the people and organizations we cover, at their true substance and higher expression, just the way we're looking at each other now. I again remembered my conversation with Joel, specifically his jaded cynicism. It's hard to see journalists doing that, I said. We're not, she replied, not yet. But this is the ideal toward which the profession is evolving. It is our true destiny. Once we become more secure and break free from the old worldview in which we need to win and bring energy and status our way. It makes perfect sense why I wanted to be born to my family. They were all so inquisitive. I picked up on their excitement, their need for information. That's why I was a reporter for so long and joined the research firm. I wanted to help work out the ethics of reporting and then come together with all. She drifted off. She drifted away again, staring at the floor of the cave. Then her eyes widened and she said, I know we're bringing in the world vision. As we remember our birth visions, we integrate them together as a group. We merge the power of our relative soul groups in other dimensions, which help us remember even more. So we finally get the overall vision of the world. We all stared at her puzzled. Look at the whole picture, she explained. Each person on Earth belongs to a soul group, and these soul groups represent the various occupational groups that exist on the planet. Medical people, lawyers, accountants, computer workers, farmers, every field of human endeavor. Once people find their right work, the job that really fits them, then they are working with other members of their soul group. As each of us wakes up and begins to remember our birth vision, why we're here, the occupational groups to which we belong come more into alignment with the members of our groups in the other dimension. As this happens, each occupational group on Earth moves towards its true soul purpose, its role of service in humanity, in human society. We all continued to be spellbound. It's like with us journalists, she continued. Throughout history, we have been the individuals most inquisitive about what others in the culture were doing. And then a few centuries ago, we became conscious enough of ourselves to form a defined occupation. Since then, we've been busy broadening our use of the media, reaching more and more people with our newscasts, that sort of thing. But like everyone else, we suffered from insecurity. We felt that we didn't get attention and energy from the rest of humanity. We had to create increasingly more sensational stories, thinking only negativity and violence sell. But that's not our true role. Our spiritual role is to deepen and spiritualize our perception of other people. We see, then communicate what the various soul groups and individuals within these groups are doing and what they stand for, making it easier for everyone to learn the truth others provide. It's the same for every occupational group. We're all awakening to our true message and purpose. And as this happens over the planet, we're then able to go further. We can form close spiritual associations with people outside of our particular soul group, just the way we're doing here. We all share our birth visions and raise our vibration together. And that transforms not only human society, but the culture in the afterlife as well. And I'll pass.
First, each of our soul groups comes closer into vibration with us on Earth, and we with them. The two dimensions opening into each other. Because of this close closure, we can begin to have communication between the dimensions. We are able to see souls in the afterlife and pick up on their knowledge and memory more readily. That's happening with increasing frequency on the Earth. As Charlene was speaking, I noticed the soul groups behind each of us widening and spreading out until each touched the others, forming a continuous circle around us. The convergence seemed to jolt me into an even higher awareness. Charlene seemed to feel it too. She took a breath and then with emphasis continued. The other thing that happens in the afterlife is that the groups themselves come closer into resonance with each other. That's why the Earth is the primary focus of the souls in heaven. They can't unite on their own. Over there, many soul groups remain fragmented and out of resonance with each other because they live in an imaginary world of ideas that manifests instantly and disappears just as quickly. So reality is always arbitrary. There is no natural world, no atomic structure as we have here. that serves as a stable platform, a background stage that is common to all of us. We affect what happens on this stage, but ideas manifest much more slowly, and we must reach some agreement on what we want to happen in the future. It's this agreement, this consensus, this unity of vision on the earth that also pulls the soul groups together in the afterlife dimension. That's why the earth dimension is deemed so important. The physical dimension is where the true unification of souls is taking place. And it's this unification that's behind the long historical journey that humans have been taking. The soul groups in the afterlife understand the world vision, the vision of how the physical world can evolve and the dimensions can close. But this can only be accomplished by individuals who are born into the physical, one at a time, hoping to move the consensus earth reality in that direction. The physical arena in the theater upon which evolution has been playing out for both dimensions, and now we're bringing it all into culmination as we remember consciously what's going on. What a reframe. Going from earth is just this place where we go as a punishment or whatever, or where we come to whatever the case may be, just this arbitrary place, to this is the place that's going to unify these dimensions. This is the place in which we do the work to bring unification. That our purpose here is to simply allow people to remember, again, we're all walking each other home. We're all here to work together. We're all here to come to the round table. These differences are here for a reason. They're here to help and serve and support a wider vision, the world vision, as opposed to, and in order to do that, we individually remember our birth vision, what our intention was coming here. And our intentions were never to be the same. They were meant to be different, but they're all going towards the same goal. And then all of a sudden, the things that we've been doing that we've been labeling lazy or unimportant or a luxury become the primary, the primary focus, becomes the priority. And then helping each other remember, helping each other trust ourselves, helping each other, supporting and celebrating the success of other people, the happiness of other people, the calm peace of other people becomes the celebration, becomes what we do. Instead of trying to take it away from somebody so we can have it, it's this joint effort of, no, we need everybody to be in this space of bliss so we can all remember. So we can all remember. You remembering is just as important and just as much of a priority as me remembering.
That came up last night in the men's group, that concept of that's all we're here to do is remember our purpose. Like we've forgotten, and it shows itself, especially in a men's group, in so many. I wanted to say ugly ways, but it that's just the feel of it, because we all think it's so ugly that I'm going through this or that I'm going through this. No, you're going through that to remember the purpose.
Yeah.
And people don't see that anymore. Like it's such a new concept for a lot of people. So it's really cool to be that voice in that kind of a group.
Yeah.
It's special.
She pointed to us with the sweeping motion of her finger. This is the awareness that we're remembering together right now. And it's the awareness that other groups just like us are remembering all over the planet. We all have a piece of complete vision. And when we share what we know and unify our soul groups, then we're ready to bring the whole picture into consciousness. Suddenly, Charlene was interrupted by a slight tremor that ran through the earth under the cave. Specks of dust fell from the ceiling. Simultaneously, we heard the hum again, but this time the dissonance had disappeared. It sounded almost harmonious. Oh God, Curtis said. They almost have the calibrations right. We have to go back to the bunker. He made a movement to get up as the energy level of the group plummeted. Wait, I said. What are we going to do there? We agreed that we would wait here until dark. There's still hours of daylight out there. I say we stay here. We achieved a high level of energy, but we haven't moved through the rest of the process yet. We seem to have cleared our residual emotions and amplified our energy and shared our birth visions, but we haven't seen the world vision yet. I think we can do more if we remain where it's safe and try to go farther. Even as I spoke, I saw an image of all of us back in the valley again and back in the valley again, together in the darkness. It's too late for that, Curtis said. They're ready to complete the experiment. If anything can be done, we've got to go there and do it now. I looked hard at him. You said they were probably going to kill Charlene. If we're caught, they'll do the same to us. Maya held her head in her hands and Curtis looked away, trying to shake off the panic. Well, I'm going, Curtis said. Charlene leaned forward. I think we should stay together. For an instant, I saw her in Native American clothing, again in the virgin woods of the 19th century. The image quickly faded. Maya stood up. Charlene is right, she said. We have to stay together, and it might help if we can see what they're doing. I looked out through the cave's entrance, a long, deep-seated reluctance rising in my gut. What are we going to do with this operative outside? We'll drag him into the cave and leave him here, Curtis said. We'll send someone for him in the morning if we can. I met eyes with Charlene, then nodded in agreement. I love the title of this. Remembering the future. We knelt at the top of the hill and looked carefully down at the base of a large ridge. I could see nothing out of the ordinary in the fading light. No movement, no guards. The hum, which had persisted for most of the 40-minute walk, had now completely disappeared. Are you sure we're at the right place? I asked Curtis. Yes, he said. Do you see the 4 large boulders about 50 feet up the slope? The doorway is right beneath them, hidden in the bushes. To the right, you can just make out the top of the projection dish. It looks functional again. I see it, Maya said. Where are the guards? I asked Curtis. Maybe they've abandoned sight. We observed the doorway for almost an hour, waiting for signs of activity, hesitant to move or talk much until darkness had fallen across the valley. Suddenly, we heard movement behind us. Flashlights clicked on, flooding us in light, and 4 armed men rushed in, demanding that we raise our hands. After spending 10 minutes going through our gear, they searched each of us, then moved the group down the hill and up to the bunker's entrance. The door of the bunker swung open and Feynman charged out loud and angry. Are these the ones we've been looking for? He shouted. Where did you find them? One of the guards explained what had happened as Feynman shook his head and stared at us through the beams of light. He walked closer and demanded, What are you doing here? You've got to stop what you're doing, Curtis retorted. Feynman was struggling to recognize them. Who are you? The guard's flashlight settled, illuminating Curtis's face. Curtis Weber, I'll be damned, Feynman said. You blew up our dish, didn't you? Listen to me, Curtis said. You know this generator is too dangerous to operate at these levels. You could ruin this entire valley. You are always an alarmist, Weber. That's why we let you go at Deltec. I've been working on this project for too long to give up at this point. It's going to work exactly as I planned. But why are you taking the chance? Concentrate on the smaller house-sized units. Why are you trying to increase the output so much? That's none of your business. You need to keep quiet. Curtis edged toward him. You want to centralize the generating process so you can control it. That's not right. Feynman smiled. A new energy system has to be phased in. Do you think we can go overnight from energy being a substantial part of household and business costs to practically nothing? The sudden disposable income throughout the world would cause hyperinflation and then probably a massive reaction that would cast us into a depression. You know that's not true, Curtis replied. Reduced energy costs would increase the efficiency of production tremendously, supplying more goods at lower costs. No inflation would occur. You're doing this for yourself. You want to centralize the production so you can control its availability and price despite the dangers. He stared angrily at Curtis. You're so naive. Do you think the interests that act to control energy prices now would allow a sudden massive shift to an inexpensive source? Of course not. It has to be centralized and packaged to work at all. And I'm going to be known for having done this. It's what I was born to do. That's not true, I blurted. You were born to do something else, to help us. Damon swung around to face me. Shut up. Do you hear me? All of you. His eyes found Charlene. What happened to the man I sent with you? Charlene looked away without responding. I don't have time for this, Feynman was shouting again. I'd suggest you worry about your personal safety right now. He paused to look us over, then shook his head and walked to one of the armed men. Keep them here in a group until this is over. All we need is another hour. If they try to escape, shoot them. The operative spoke briefly to the other three, and they formed a perimeter encircling us at a distance of about 30 feet. Sit down, one of them said. We sat facing each other in the darkness. Our energy was almost totally deflated. There had been no sign of the soul group since we left the cave. What do you think we should do? I asked Charlene. Nothing's changed, she whispered. We've got to build our energy again. The darkness was now almost total, broken only by the operatives' lights sweeping back and forth across the group. I could barely make out the outlines of the others' faces, even though we were sitting in a tight circle 8 feet apart. We have to try to escape, Curtis whispered. I think they will kill us. Then I remembered the image I'd seen in Feynman's birth vision. He envisioned being with us in the woods, in the dark. I knew there was also another landmark in the scene, but I couldn't remember what it was. No, I said, I think we need to try again here. At that moment, the air was filled with a high-pitched sound, a sound similar to the hum, but again, more in harmony, almost pleasing to the ear. Again, a perceptible shimmer swept through the ground under our bodies. We have to increase our energy now, Maya whispered. I don't know if I can do it here, Curtis responded. You have to, I said. Focus on each other the way we did before, Maya added. I tried to screen out the ominous scene around us and return to an inner state of love. Ignoring the shadows and the flickering beams of light, I focused on the beauty of the faces in the circle. As I struggled to locate the other's higher self-expression, I began to notice a shift in the light pattern around us. Gradually, I could see every face and expression very clearly, as though I was looking through an infrared viewer. What do we visualize? Curtis asked in desperation. We have to get back to our birth visions, Maya said. Remember why we came. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and the sound from the experiment again took on a dissonant, grating quality. We moved closer together, and our collective thought seemed to project the image of fighting back. We knew that somehow we could marshal our forces and push back the negative and destructive attempts of the experiment. I even picked up a picture of Feynman being pushed backward, his equipment blowing up and burning, his men fleeing in terror. Another surge in the noise disrupted my focus. The experiment was continuing. 50 feet away, a huge pine tree snapped in half and thundered to the ground. With a ripping sound and a cloud of dust, a fissure 5 feet wide opened up between us and the guard on the right. He reeled back in horror, the beam of his flashlight swinging wild in the night. This isn't working, Maya screamed. Another tree crashed to the ground on our left as the earth slid 4 or 5 feet, knocking us flat. Maya looked horrified and jumped to her feet. I've got to get away from here, she yelled, then began to run north into the darkness. The guard on that side, lying where he had been thrown by the earth's movement, rolled to his knees and caught her form in the beam of the flashlight, then raised his gun. No, wait, I screamed. As she ran, Maya looked back, spotting the guard who was now aiming directly at her, preparing to fire. The scene seemed to shift into slow motion, and as the gun discharged, every line in her face revealed an awareness that she was about to die. But instead of the bullet ripping into her side and back, a wisp of light darted in front of her, and the bullets bore no effect. She hesitated momentarily, then disappeared into the darkness. At the same time, sensing the opportunity, Charlotte leapt up from her position to my right and ran to the northeast into the dust, her movement unnoticed by the guards. I started to run, but the guard who had fired at Maya turned his weapon toward me. Quickly, Curtis reached out and grabbed my legs, dragging me to the ground. Behind us, the bunker door swung open, and Feynman ran to the dish antenna and furiously adjusted the keyboard. Gradually, the noise began to diminish, and the earth movements slowed to mere tremors. For God's sakes, Curtis yelled toward him, you've got to stop this. Feynman's face was covered with dust. There's nothing wrong that we can't fix, he said with eerie calm. The guards were on their feet, dusting themselves off and walking toward us. Feynman noticed that Maya and Charlene were missing, but before he could say anything, the noise returned with ear-shattering volume, and the earth under us seemed to leap upward several feet, rolling everyone to the ground once more. The splintering limbs from a fallen tree sent the guards scurrying toward the bunker. Now, Curtis said, let's go. I was frozen. He jerked me to my feet. We've got to move, he yelled in my ear. Finally, my leg worked again, and we ran northeast in the same direction that Maya had fled. Several more tremors reverberated under our feet, and then the movements and sounds ceased. After making our way through the dark woods for several miles, our path lighted only by the rays of the moon filtering through the foliage, we stopped and huddled in a grove of small pines. Do you think they'll follow us? Yes, he said. They can't allow any of us to get back to town. I would guess that they still have people stationed along the paths back. While he was talking, a clear picture of the falls entered my mind. It was still pristine, undisturbed. The falling water, I realized, was the landmark in Feynman's vision that I had been trying to remember. We have to go northwest towards the falls, I said. Curtis nodded toward the north, and as silently as possible, we headed in that direction, crossing the stream and carefully making our way toward the canyon. Periodically, Curtis would stop and cover our tracks. During a rest, we could hear the low rumbling of vehicles from the southeast. After another mile, we began to see the moonlit canyon walls rising up in the distance. As we approached the rocky mouth, Curtis led the way across the creek. Suddenly, he jumped backward in a fright as someone walked around a tree from the left. The person screamed and recoiled, almost losing balance, teetering at the edge of the creek bank. Maya, I yelled, realizing who it was. Curtis recovered and lunged forward and pulled her back as rocks and gravel slid into the water. She hugged him intensely and then reached out to me. I don't know why I ran like that. I just panicked. I could only think to head toward the falls you told me about. I just prayed that some of you would get away too. Leaning back against a larger tree, she took a deep breath and asked, what happened when the guard fired back there? How did those bullets miss me? I saw this strange streak of light. Curtis and I looked at each other. I don't know, I said. It seemed to calm me, Maya continued, in a way I've never experienced before. We looked at each other. No one spoke. Then, in silence, I heard the distinct sound of someone walking up ahead. Wait, I said to the others, someone's up there. We crouched down and waited. 10 minutes went by. Then from the trees ahead, Charlene walked up and dropped to her knees. Thank God I found you, she said. How did you get away? We were able to run when a tree fell. Charlene looked deep into my eyes. I thought you might head toward the falls, so I walked in this direction, although I don't know if I could have found them in the dark. Maya motioned for us, and we all moved out to a clearing where the creek went through the mouth of the canyon. Here, the full light of the moon illuminated the grass and the rocks to each side. Maybe we're going to have another chance, she said. My alarm's about to go off. I keep forgetting to change my alarm. Maybe we're going to have another chance, she said, urging us with their hands to sit down and face each other. What are we going to do? Curtis said. We can't stay here long. They'll be coming. I looked at Maya, thinking we should go on to the falls, but she seemed so energized that instead I asked, what do you think went wrong before? I don't know. Maybe there are too few of us. You said there were supposed to be 7. Or perhaps there's too much fear. Charlene leaned toward the group. I think we have to remember the energy we achieved when we were in the cave. We have to connect at that level again. For several long minutes, we all worked on our inner connection. Finally, Maya said, we have to give each other energy, find the higher self-expression. I took several deep breaths and watched the faces of the others again. Gradually, they became more beautiful and luminescent, and I caught sight of their authentic soul expression. Around us, the surrounding plants and rocks lit up even more, as though the moon's rays had suddenly doubled. A familiar wave of love and euphoria swept through my body, and I turned to see the shimmering figures of my soul group behind me. As soon as I saw them, my awareness seemed to expand even more, and I realized that the soul groups of the others were in similar positions, although they had not yet merged. Maya caught my eye. She was looking at me in a state of complete openness and honesty, and as I watched her, it seemed as though I could see her birth vision as a subtle expression on her face. She knew who she was, and it beamed outward for everyone to observe. Her mission was clear. Her background had prepared her perfectly. Feel as if the atoms in your body are vibrating at a higher level, she said. I glanced at Charlene. On her face was the same clarity. She represented the information bearers, identifying and communicating the vital truths expressed by each person or group. Do you see what's happening? Charlene asked. We're seeing each other as who we really are at our highest level, without the emotional projections of old fears. I can see that, Curtis said, his face again full of energy and certainty. No one spoke for several minutes. I closed my eyes as the energy continued to build. Look at that, Charlene suddenly said, pointing at the soul groups all around us. Each soul group was beginning to blend with the others, just as they had done at the cave. I glanced at Charlene and then at Curtis and Maya. I could now see on their faces an even fuller expression of who they were as participants in the long movement of human civilization. This is it, I said. We're reaching the next step. We're seeing a more complete vision of human history. I feel like if we continue, we're going to get stopped in the middle. I want to hear this like complete vision of human history. I think that this is a good place to stop and pick up next time. We can
For us.
embark on that journey.
It's happening. Wow.
I love that, like, as we're entering this part of the book about the groups coming together and clearing their old energies and what happens when we come together in community. We have like all these groups starting with the men's group, you know, and we have the Sacred Wilds and then having gathering. Oh, Paul, we're gathering on Sunday between 5 and 6 for a full moon gathering. If you're interested in coming.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing formal or anything. We're just gonna play and see what happens.
I don't know how Friday's gonna look, but Tracy's doing because Tracy's leaving for a week and a half to Connecticut for a training. Friday night after the full moon breath work and gong bath.
Okay.
So if you're interested, we could jump that into our little practice. I don't know if we got time for that on Friday or not.
Okay, let me see what I feel like on Friday. Um, what time is that at?
7, I believe. 6:30.
Okay. You see, I have class from 5 until 6:30.
Oh,
But I'll see what I feel aligned with, depending on where I'm called. But yeah, and even if we don't get to practice Friday night, well, no, Saturday morning, I'm gonna be busy. There's just a couple of things that I want to work out with you. Like one is going to be you tossing me the dragon staff at the beginning of one of the numbers. And then it's really all just like keeping the timing and getting the other props set for
that Friday for
and
sure.
ready for me as I go through because they're going to be 15-minute sets. So I'm going to be going through the props while I'm dancing. So I'll just need you to prepare them and switch them out with me
Okay.
as they go out. But yeah, we can find time at some point if it's after that or yeah, because Saturday I'm gonna pick the kids up early and we're gonna go get breakfast and then me and Ash are getting our hair cut and then we're getting our nails done so that way I can part of my preparation for performance.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then I'm teaching on Sunday at 1.
At what?
1. I'm teaching the 1 o'clock class on Sunday.
Okay.
That's my only plans outside of the other plans this
I
weekend.
know, all of the plans, all the perfection. Yeah. Um, yeah, we'll just need to, I'm trying to figure out the flow of things. Because one of the opening numbers is Geisha, that second number that I did at the with the dragon staff at the showcase.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna start. I don't know if I'm gonna do that first or second for my first or second set, but so we'll need somebody to start the music while you're holding the dragon staff, and just you knowing when to throw the dragon staff to me
Okay.
is all. But yeah, I just think it's beautiful that we're walking again. I mean, that's how it's been the entire journey with this book, of like we're embodied with what the book is telling us, and it's like this guide of how to deepen these things, right? Like everything that you're doing or that I hear about with the men's group, you know, how you're talking about like what you guys are doing or clearing, you're clearing the residual emotional residue, you know.
It's fucking 10 of us last night.
Hmm?
There was 10 of us last night.
Wow.
That's
Fuck
awesome.
yes.
More the
Yeah.
merrier.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the full moon this month, it's the buck moon, and I was reading a little bit about it, and I love I love the names of the moons because they're named based on the natural events of things, right? So it's called the full buck moon because it's the time the new antlers start growing on the bucks. And so it's the time for setting, like, so the full moon is the time for release, for letting go. You know, it's full, so it's time to let go of what no longer serves, what doesn't align. And so, like the new moon, it's empty, so it's time to set the manifestation, set the intention for the new moon. But the full buck moon, so it's about new adventures, it's about new opportunities. It's time to, because it's the time of the antler growth, it's that time of growth of the, you know, we planted the seeds in spring and now it's time for the growth to happen. So it's time to tend to what's growing. You know, what opportunities are presenting themselves to us, or what have we started in spring that is starting to grow now? And in that, we get to tend to the growth. And with that, like take a look at what is alive for us, what is calling our attention and energy, and what do we have in our life still that isn't necessarily aligned to give our attention and energy. And it's kind of what I've been going through the last couple of weeks of like, where am I giving my time, attention, money, and energy, and does it align?
Right.
And so this full moon is really about getting clear and concise on that, in the direction of our growth. Like, where is our growth leading us, as opposed to where are we trying to go? And do those things align, right? And just kind of recalibrating ourselves in the trajectory of things.
Love it.
Yep.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me again this morning. Love the community. Love it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
Love
much love
connecting
for
with my,
you.
yeah, I love connecting with my people. I do. Just as I adventure off to go connect with my people, it's a lot,
Yeah.
and it feels good. It does. Good morning, son. With a sleepyhead.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be a beautiful day. It already has. It already
It
is.
already
So,
is.
it's a beautiful day.
Expand and amplify.
Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my
Absolutely.
dears, I love you.
I love you. Have a great
Much
Thursday.
love. You too. Peace,
Mm.
love, and harmony, guys.
Mhm. Bye, babes.
Bye.